Welcome to the Grief Bully podcast. I am your host, J.Nicole. Thank you for joining our weekly discussion around grief, mental health, and your overall personal wellness. The Grief Bully podcast will serve as a vehicle to help you navigate life's journey. Be sure to subscribe, review, and share the podcast with anyone in your life that you think it will help. Let's bully grief together. What's up, beautiful people? Welcome back to another episode of the Grief Bully podcast. I am your host, J.Nicole. Today is Monday, September the 21st. We are rocking and rolling back in the studio, episode 58. I am certainly looking forward to today's episode. Before we get into that, I do want to thank our sponsors, BetterHelp. They are an online counseling organization. They're offering us counseling, therapy, one-on-one from the privacy of our homes, video chat, text message, phone calls, whatever your comfort level is, they have that option for you. Again, that's BetterHelp, and you can get 10% off your first month when you use my link, trybetterhelp, HELP.com/thegriefbully. Again, if you're going through a difficult time in your life, you don't know where to turn, you don't feel comfortable just going out, maybe it's your first time with therapy and counseling, but we want to make sure that we have a great option for you. So again, that's trybetterhelp.com/thegriefbully. Thank you again, BetterHelp, for being our sponsor. So last week I was in again for a solo round. I hope you enjoyed it. If you listened to it, if you did not, what are you waiting for? I want you to go back, check out the episode, leave a comment or a review because you can watch this on YouTube. So definitely go hit the subscribe button and let us know what you thought. So this week, back in the studio, I had 2 back-to-back solo rounds. Now we're here, and I do have a guest. And I don't have just any guest. I have a phenomenal person, just a very humble, beautiful spirit, someone that probably doesn't see himself as big as I do, but I'm super fortunate, very, very blessed to have today with us I'm not even going to say the TJ Jackson. I am so excited. TJ, how are you today?
I am doing excellent, J.Nicole, the grief bully. How are you?
I am doing well, TJ. I can't thank you enough for coming on to the show today to share your love, to share your light, and most importantly, your experiences with us. I think the things that you've been through in your life will certainly offer myself and my audience just a great perspective, some wisdom, and I just know that we're going to grow from this episode. So again, thank you, and welcome to the Grief Bully podcast.
I'm happy to be here. So thank you.
Thank you. So a lot of people, they might not know, but TJ Jackson, or you might know, is actually the son of Tito Jackson. He is a part of the Jackson family, member of 3T. He's now doing his solo projects. He's got amazing songs out there, Insomnia, which I really do love. So that. And so many other amazing songs to go out there and check out for TJ. But today, he's on the show today for us to talk about grief and loss. TJ, alongside his brothers, Taj and Terrell, have launched the Dee Dee Jackson Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization that helps with grief and loss, and they offer music therapy and so many cool, amazing things. But unfortunately, for a lot of us, when we're doing these things that are making change in the community and the world, they stem from something. And a lot of times it stems from pain that we've been through, our own trauma, our own experiences, and then we make that decision to lean into it and to when we are ready to find a way to have an outlet. And so, unfortunately, their mother, Dee Dee Jackson, passed away in 1994. And so, TJ, I just kind of want to jump right into it. I know you were young at the time. You were just 16 years old, I believe. Yeah. So if you don't mind, just to your comfort level, just take us back to that. I think it was August 27th, 1994.
Yeah, so I was just turned 16. I turned 16 July 16, and I remember summers were always great, just like for most kids, I think, you go through school and then you get towards the end of the school and you're looking forward to summer. I played a lot of sports, baseball, and my mother was like mom number one. My parents had just divorced a couple years earlier. So my mother was my world. She did everything. She became super mom, and she was always super mom, but that's when you really get to see it. And I was at an age at 15 where I was getting my driver's license, and I had braces. So I really started to understand how much my mother meant to me and how much she did for me. I was able to articulate that. And then, I just, every kid's worst nightmare happened, and I remember getting a phone call, actually being woken up. My brother got the phone call, but being woken up that there was something wrong with mom. And right when I got woken up, I knew how serious it was, and we went to the hospital and was delivered the news. And again, I could tell from something in it, my gut knew it wasn't good. It wasn't, uh, I was hoping, but it wasn't. We had a police escort to the hospital. So I was like, for me to have a police escort at 2:30 in the morning, and it's just my brothers and I, and they're driving us somewhere. The car ride was just quiet, and you just knew something was off. And we found out that my mother was no longer with us. And it's still something that still hurts, and still something I go through every day, is getting through that time period, and getting through life without her. So uh, it's something that it's a whole. It's a whole. I don't want to say it's all is good now. I still have some difficult moments. Primarily, actually, as a father. Perfect example. Just 15 minutes before we started, my son asked me, because I used to speak Spanish, and he couldn't understand how I knew Spanish, and I was saying, well, my mother, she spoke Spanish and she taught me. And then he's a 5-year-old boy, and I was like, your mother? And he's like, yeah, Grandma Dee Dee. And she's like, but she's dead. And he couldn't articulate, he couldn't make the connection. So then it throws me in a loop. It's like, I miss my mom. So it's tough, but it's what it is, and we just have to make the best of life, and I have to just make her proud, and her memory proud, and that's one reason why my brothers and I, we started the Dee Dee Jackson Foundation, to try to keep her legacy living, and then try to do things for others who may be in a similar situation, to let them know they are not alone. Because that's what we've learned, is that being alone and the thinking and the thought of being alone and isolated is where you can get into some serious trouble. And I was fortunate to have a family and a good group of friends that caught me and corralled me, and let me know I wasn't alone. So that's what we try to do with DDJF.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you
Yeah.
for the transparency. I know that's a moment that is not something you always want to talk about, but I'm glad that you found it in your heart to feel it is necessary to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah.
When the doctors were conveying this message to you, do you think you believed it instantly, or did it take you quite a few years, or do you still find that it's hard to at times accept the reality that your mother isn't here?
The first, like I said, the minute I knew something was off, and I didn't know how it happened. I just felt my mother not with us instantly, before the doctor said, before we walked into the hospital. And then the doctor informed us, and I knew it, but then you go home or you go to sleep and you think it's a bad dream. So then you wake up the next day and it's like, mom's somewhere, she's just lost. Or you start trying to justify it. That happened for a good couple of years, for me. I'd say about close to 4 to 5 years of just having those mental, and I think as time went on, I started to not have them as frequently, and I really don't have them anymore. But the first several years, all the time, I used to think mom's just going to surprise everyone, or was it just a bad? I wake up in the middle of the night saying it's a bad dream. Mom's here somewhere, but it wasn't a dream, and it's my reality. And somewhere in that time period, 3 to 5 years, I somehow accepted it, and I don't have those kind of illusions or thoughts anymore.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And I think you helped a lot of people right there. Just feel
Mm,
that normalcy, to feel like you said, to echo your whole mission is to not feel alone. And I think that's really important, because I think as grievers, as bereaved folks, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to feel a certain way, to compare ourselves to other people's healing journey and or experience. And just because someone tells you something doesn't mean that your heart and your emotions can actually take that and
mm,
process it and actually believe it for what it is. So I certainly thank you for sharing that. I know I read somewhere that I don't want to say the direct quote because I don't know 100% how it was, but either you were so gone or so lost once your mother passed away. What does that look like with a 16-year-old just lost, if you don't mind?
Uh, just lost, just gone, not caring. I was always a really great student, A student. I was that kid that if they got an A minus was upset, or a B plus was not
I wasn't
happy.
that kid. But
I was on, and I wasn't the kind of kid that would start a fight. I didn't, I was I think a pretty easy kid to parent. I know I had my issues. All kids do, but I was on a path. I was driven, all that good stuff. And the year after, I was kind of a mess. I didn't go and turn into an F student, but I didn't care as much. If I got B's or even a C, it was like no big deal. If I got into a fight, not that I did, but I wasn't afraid to get into a fight. I just didn't care. I didn't have any. Um, I don't. It was as if my soul was taken, to an extent, and I didn't really. Nothing mattered. The worst thing that had could have happened to me happened to me. So I was like, there's nothing that can hurt as much as this pain and this loss. So I just didn't care. And like I said though earlier, I was blessed to have a family, my grandmother, my uncle Michael, and I had some amazing friends and obviously my father too. I thought that was a given, so I shouldn't mention them. But those three in my family, and then I had a good group of friends that just kind of brought life back to me, brought the excitement and the joy. And my uncle Michael was huge because he just, I think he had sensed. We spent a lot of time with him, and I think he had sensed this loss. A loss of drive, a loss of everything, a loss of emotion, a loss of care. And I remember him telling us, don't fall into that zone. Do something for her. Stay motivated. There's a lot of life to live. Make her proud. You are. I had that person, that big brother, that tell me I'm going to be okay, and I can do great things. And that was important. And it came from a source that I believed. And I within a year, I think it was a year later, we actually released our first single, Anything, on her birthday, I'm sorry, I believe it was on the day she passed. I'm not so sure because I was only 16, 17, but I had heard of that. And it was kind of shocking that we bounced back so quickly. And I think that, again, was because of my family and my Uncle Michael.
no, that's amazing. I think support is a really big thing, and to be able
Mm,
to have that space to kind of not rebel, but be how you felt at that time, but also remembering that finding a bigger purpose and to do something to make your mother proud will definitely
yeah.
make it better for you. I mean, I can imagine having to navigate and figure out your emotions and be curious about that, but also the weight of your legacy is still on your shoulders. And so I know that it for you to be able to move about and deal with your grief, but also deal with being TJ Jackson, do you
Mm.
find that was difficult, or maybe could have potentially be more difficult than maybe someone like myself?
You know, Looking back, maybe I could understand how you can go there, but when I was a teen, when I was a kid, you don't know any other way. You don't know different. So my 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 mother was murdered, and it was all over the news. It was a hot topic that year, and it was, back then it was hard copy, and I think there was Entertainment Tonight, but it was all over those kind of what happened and how and why, and did this guy murder her and all that stuff. So I didn't see that at the time. I see some of those clippings on YouTube. Not that I search for them, but I've seen them in passing, and sometimes they'll come up on the feed and stuff. But at the time, I didn't really know that. I at the funeral there were helicopters because my family was there. So but we were used to that. That we were always used to something happening in our family, and helicopters and some type of invasion of privacy or some type of abnormally, just a different way of taking things and doing things. So I didn't really see it as this is harder because of it. I just felt that was what goes along with me being who I am.
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't give it any extra, but you know, and again, I credit my father and my grandmother and my family for protecting us, because, you know, it would be horrible to watch TV and then hear and see all the speculation and continue down the negative spin that way. But back then it wasn't as bad because we didn't have social media.
You actually walked right into my next point. It was going to say that we're now in a time, we're in
Oh,
2020, where you just can't do it in private. I not even to a little bit. Understandably, you had helicopters and whatever TV networks were at the time reported on this. I had Summer Wayans on not too long ago, and she was saying how her grandmother recently passed away, and she had a grandmother on her father's side who was not a celebrity family, and then I think it was her grandmother. I'm sorry, but I know it was her grandparent. I think it's her grandfather on her father's side passed away, and nothing, no real mention, not too many people reaching out. When her grandmother on her mother's side, who was a Wayans, passed away, unfortunately, recently, it was like she said it was, I mean, it was just a flooding of everything that you never really
yeah,
had to consider. And it was a big difference. And so, I mean, I can imagine that can be definitely difficult.
yeah,
But I mean, I want people to know that you're human. That's kind of
yeah.
what I was saying there, because I think celebrities or people in famous families, or however we want to perceive it, are just looked, and I'm seeing this a lot recently with like the cancel culture and all of those things, that like you're not human, as if I cut you, you're not going to bleed the same color that I am.
You know, that is 100% true. You know, we're still human. You know, I still hurt. I feel those same pains, you know, and that's for all celebrities. You know, every celebrity I've known has felt those pains. I've seen them in difficult times. I've seen them hurt. I've seen them in pain. We all hurt, you know, and I think that's something that social media, I wish we could do a better job. And I try to, is to show all sides, you know, it's not just show the perfect, and everything, you know, everything going well. On our last show for the Power of Love, the DDJF show, and I was talking about how I feel off. I don't feel right, you know, and I don't know if it's this quarantine. I don't know if these fires. I don't know if it's just a mixture of things, but I don't feel right. And it's important to say that when you're in this position, so that people can understand it. It's just not me, it's, you know, because what I've seen being a Jackson is there's so many people that are quote unquote wishing they were, you know, someone. I don't want to say wishing they were Jackson, because that sounds wrong, but wishing they were this celebrity or that person, or, you know, I wish I was in the NBA, my life would be great and I wouldn't have these problems. And that's not true. You know, we all have problems, we all got issues, we all have concerns, and we all hurt. And I think it is important to say that. Saying all that though, there is and this is interesting, the first time I ever said this, and I think it's important to say, is there is this kind of numbingness that I feel. And I feel it's because, you know, whether it's the media, whether it's the position, we're always being talked about as if we're not human. And when I say we, I'm talking about more my family. You know, from the passing of my uncle to even the passing of my grandfather, it seems like, you know, because you could hear about the news and then um, later that night, you know, all of a sudden there's comedians making jokes like that's not a real person. It's just something they can grab and profit on, you know. And although it hurts, and now that I'm older, it doesn't hurt as much. It used to really upset me, but it still takes a bit of your soul away, where it's like your emotions, and it numbs you. It makes you harden. And that's something that I try to balance with, because I don't want to be a hard person. I believe in emotions and being real and being raw and allowing yourself to cry or to say, I need help. That's super important in life. And so I personally, and I know there's people out there that I have to fight that. And again, I don't like bringing people in, but I'm just going to say it. My heart breaks for the Bryant family, because I can only imagine what his girls and what Vanessa are going through. It's so difficult, and that Kobe's loss hurts me tremendously as a fan of him, as someone who's met him, and he was a golden person. But just because I can kind of relate to that experience and the road they're going to have, my heart breaks for them, because people don't realize that when they go to the mall and someone's wearing Kobe shoes or wearing his jersey, or they pass by Staples Center, those are constant reminders of this figure that they absolutely love. And it's same to us when we put on the TV to watch TV and you see Thriller, or you hear a Jackson 5 song or whatever it is. It's a constant reminder of my uncle. And when the closer you are as a family, the harder that is, and the more painful that could be.
Yes, yes. Thank you for sharing that. I think
Yeah.
you spoke for not only the Jackson family, I think you spoke for so many people that can empathize with where you are. And I think
Yeah.
that becomes tiresome and just a little bit much. And so maybe
Mm.
you think that's kind of what's happening as far as feeling more numb now and just kind of feeling, are you a little, I don't say fearful, but kind of apprehensive or concerned might be a better word, that you're going to that numb stage and you don't want to
Uh,
like lose your spark of who you
I,
are?
I, a bit. I don't want to make it seem like I'm hardened and I'm completely numb. I just very sensitive and in tune with where I'm at. I think I've always been that way, and I can sense it going that way over the last 5-10 years, and it could be possibly because I never properly grieved from my uncle's passing, and I think a lot of it is because I wanted to be there so much for my cousins to help, and to, that I always was trying to look at it through their eyes and trying to help them, because I understood a bit to their road that they were going to take, that I never really got to grieve as his nephew, and that's something that I think I need to handle and take care of. And as they're older, they're all 18 and up now, I'm now gonna able to explore that and what that is and what that's like, don't get me wrong, I still grieved my uncle, and I've still, you know, off, but there's a way I think we all, especially when he's someone as important it was to me, to really dive in and focus on yourself, and I haven't done that.
That's powerful, TJ. And one thing I want to say before I even lose a thought that brought up for me is the parallel, and I talked about this actually I think on maybe one of my last episodes, kind of like a preconceived grief. And what I mean by that is, it, from what I heard you saying, I could be wrong, is that because you wanted to be there for your cousins because of the fact that you were not too long away in their shoes. So you know firsthand what that road is like to lose your parent at such a young age, that you're kind of, so it's like living in someone's shoes in like a negative way, where you say like, excuse me, when a parent tries to relive their life, they want their children to relive. Wait, what am I trying to say? They want to relive their childhood through their
Hmm.
children's lives. What I'm trying to say, and so kind of to an extent, you were experiencing what they were going to feel, but maybe they didn't feel it, or maybe they didn't go that way. But you put it on you to say, hey, I'm going to protect them and make sure that they don't kind of have to get lost or whatever.
As best as I could, and a big reason is because my uncle was there for me and my brothers. When my world was quote unquote gone or over, when I was 16 and lost my mother, my uncle Michael, I don't know how he did it, being who he was, and as the biggest pop star in the world. I don't know how he still felt so present. I felt like I could talk to him in 5 minutes if I needed to. And I did sometimes, when I needed to, I would reach out and he was there. And I, I could not go on with my life not being there all the time as much as I could for my cousins. Because I felt my uncle was there for me, and B is because I kind of knew the road they were going to take and have, and I knew there would be those moments in the middle of the night where they were just down, or I kind of tried to do things to help them continue on, and give them their space and let them have bad moments and not beat them down. And a lot of people don't understand the importance of that. And no one's perfect. That's regardless if you lose a parent. And I think sometimes we have to be sensitive to um, the amount of pain someone feels when they lose a parent. Because I think sometimes people just think, well, okay, enough is enough, or they may not say that, but they feel that way. They feel like they shouldn't be grieving this longer. They shouldn't do this to act out. And the truth of the matter is, they don't understand. And you have to be sensitive to what someone is going through, especially a youth, if they lose their parent and a loved one. You have to be incredibly open and you have to be incredibly comforting to what they need. And I've seen a lot of people not do that, and it hurts. But I just wish that was a better thing that's shown in our society, in our world, was that more sympathy to a kid when they lose someone.
Well, you're doing a great job of showing us, and you have done. I know they're older now and becoming adults
Mm.
of them of their own, but that's a beautiful thing, and I think that's also selfless because you could have said, "Hey, I would love to be there, but I kind of have my own grief that I need to deal with that I haven't really dealt with or navigated through, so I can't really do that." And so I think that's admirable that you did that.
I just that never crossed my mind. In fact, it was the other way around. And I don't, like when you said you could have, I couldn't have. It wasn't like a decision. It was one of those things where, just like how when you're hungry, you got to go eat. You don't, it's not a decide, should I eat this or not, or whatever. Some things I got to go home, whatever it is. That's how I felt. There was no like, should I or shouldn't I? I just felt I had to be there, and I will always be there. Just because it was guardian and now they're adults, that doesn't mean I won't be there. I tell them all, and I'll always. And you call me in the middle of the night. I could be 65, 70 years old. You could be 40. I am here. And that is something that I want them to know. And I know they know, but I want people to tell their nephew or their little brother or little sister or someone who's lost someone. You have to be there all the time for them and let them know, let them find that stability in life and that stable person. I think that's crucial for them.
That thank you for offering that, TJ. I think that's definitely going to help a lot of people. How are you going to be there for TJ right now? Now that you're saying that you feel like, you're at this point where you may have some grief, or because grief really by definition is deep sorrow. And so losing your mother at a young age and losing your uncle who you were very close to, and obviously both in very public manners. How do you be there for TJ now at this point in your life where you can sense and kind of feel you're in tune that, hey, some things aren't right. I've got to dig in and figure out a little bit better to make sure that my light still shines.
I think honestly, I have a lot of kids, so I don't. I hate, and I don't like saying it this way, but my time has been limited for that aspect. But the one thing that's been so amazing for me that I actually didn't realize it would be so beneficial for me is my mother's foundation and doing those weekly shows. And even when we had you as a guest, and all we every week we're talking with someone who, or we do it sometimes on our own, which is equally as beneficial, but we're talking about it, we're expressing it, and that's helping me heal, not only my mother but my uncle. But being a Jackson, we didn't, I don't want to say we didn't believe in therapy or counseling. We were just so private and so guarded that it wasn't something we did. And I wish it wasn't that way. But there's something about when you grow up in our family, you're very much guarded. And then maybe that's because of the betrayals that we've went through.
Listen, you kind of probably had to.
And it's so difficult because that makes you very guarded and not open up. So when something like this happens, when other people can go to therapy or just explain what's going on, for us, there's a little bit of a hesitancy, and it doesn't have to be a long hesitancy. Just that little bit is enough to not let something all the way through. And that's something that I'm working on, and that's something that I think with DDJF I've been able to get better at. And just to see the immediate reception from the community and to let them know, thank you. That helps me when you share this. It encourages it to happen more. But it's not a natural thing in my family. And I think for anyone who has famous families, when you lose someone, you can probably kind of relate to that privacy aspect. I think in today's time it's getting better though, because the world is getting more open and social media, everyone's going live all the time. So it may not be as big of a deal, but back when I was growing up, everything was very private and guarded. And I think that also contributed to the mentality I have.
For sure. For sure. I think that's it right there. The dialogue, the conversation, and what you said, I think could be overlooked because I think sometimes when we're on this healing journey and we're on this journey of restoration, if we believe that we're broken or just finding more peace and joy in our lives, I think we overlook those things that can be deemed as small. So a weekly show where you're able to chat with people who, who thinks that talking about grief every week could bring you any joy? And for me, it does. And I agree with you, because it's something that we're not doing. And I know that you said in your family, being who you all are, but also I just think in more urban communities of color, it's just not something. I don't know anyone growing up that had a therapist. And if they did, I just didn't know, because like you say, you don't really talk
It's,
about it. So it's
yeah.
like,
And,
what is that?
and, or it could be, and I don't know as well as maybe you will know, but it could be seen as a sign of weakness. I don't know what it is, but either way, you know, and this is one thing I do want to say that helped me tremendously. One thing I learned, I had a dog before my mother passed, and the dog was probably 4 or 5 years old when my mother passed. And it was a connection to me and my mother, because my mom, the dog, loved me and my mother, and it was my dog. She gave me that responsibility. Um, but what I'm saying is, don't forget about the role pets can play, and because my dog was that therapist in a way. Obviously, he couldn't talk back to me, but when I was just at my worst, there was a heartbeat next to me. There was someone that loved me unconditionally. And although I didn't have those in-depth conversations, I got to feel love when I needed it. And I think pets just have that kind of sense with their the person that they love to be that for them. And whether it's a cat, whether it's a dog, whatever it is, for anyone out there, don't discount the role an animal can play in healing for a youngster.
That's definitely great feedback. Thank you for that. I can
Yeah.
agree too. And they can pick up on your emotions. It's just a total different thing. So if you don't feel that comfortable speaking to adults, because I mean, let's be honest, we can kind of suck sometimes.
Yeah.
people people aren't always the best. That's, to be honest with you, there for sure. So a couple more things. I mean, one thing I want to say that I noticed just from looking over some things is just your strength has always just seemed to be there. So a point where you hadn't been to your mother's
Yeah.
cemetery, her
Yeah.
burial site, since the funeral. It had been a lot of years. This was probably going back 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Have you been since?
I haven't. So we went in 2015, 14. So it had been 20 years for the first time I went, and I went with my brothers, and it was kind of what I thought it would be, but it was very hard on my middle brother. And, but I think it was also healthy for him. And people that I respect, I'm one of those guys who likes to listen to the elders, and especially elders I respect. I take their word like it's gold. And I've gotten a lot of people that say you should visit more. I just haven't done it yet. And I don't know. I think there's something in me that's holding me from doing it. I trust me, I am busy, but if there's a way. I pass by it often, so there's a way I could. I just, I don't know. I don't know if I do need to do it. I need to try it again, this time by myself or with my family, but I haven't done it.
Thank you for sharing that. And I
Yeah.
brought it up, and the reason why I say thank you a lot too, I could say that a lot, because even though it seems easy, the way you're just elegantly saying these things, it's tough. It's tough stuff to
Yeah.
talk about. And it just came to mind. I saw it and I was like, I really want to know about that, because I think a lot of people struggle with that. There's so many people who have never been, not even one time, since burials. My own, I think my younger brother, because as you know, I lost my father last year. My younger brother hasn't been. I know for a fact he hasn't been since the last time we were. I mean, excuse me, not my father. I apologize. My grandmother, because my
Mhm.
dad actually was cremated. My grandmother. That's been 4 years, and he hasn't been, and I know that. And when I go, I pass actually on my way here to record. I pass every Thursday. I could literally just go to my grandmother's gravesite, and I have been, but I have to go without like a plan. Like I have to just end up there. Even like
Mm.
her birthday, and when I went, I didn't have flowers because the cemetery said it was closing, and I didn't have enough time to go to the store. And I went, and there was like guilt, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. So I do
Mm.
think that there's a time when you're really ready to do that. But I was just curious if you had made it back.
I have, yeah, and like you've been saying, thank you for sharing that, because that stuff is important, and you're right, and it is right to think, not saying me, but just thanking these guys, because this is a hard topic. You know, this is something that's private and something that I haven't said it most of this ever. But I do want to thank you for sharing that because it helps me. Just hearing that story helps me. So, because I'm imagining you driving by and seeing it, and that's what I go through, you know, on almost a daily basis. So it just, I think the key is when you lose someone, when you lose a parent, when you lose a significant, you gotta understand that you're not alone. It's such an, I don't know what it is, but it's such an isolating feeling, you know, and maybe because my mom was my mom and two other people's moms. So maybe it is in that sense, it's just us three against the world type of thing. But every day someone's losing their mom, you know, every second. And I think we have to remember that we are a group, we're a community, you know, and to not feel that isolation. Because if you start feeling that isolation, it can get bad, you know, and it can get depressing and you can lose a lot of life. And that's what I think, if I can encourage people who are listening or watching to make sure you realize you're not alone. And if you're starting to feel that loneliness, to find a community, to find a group of people who are in similar positions and talk with them. Super important.
Very important. Very important. You are not alone. So if you're listening out there, we definitely want to make sure that you know that and that you feel that is super important. TJ, thank you for that. What do you think about closure? I'm curious that you lost your mother at a young age. You lost your uncle. Do
Yeah.
you do you believe in closure? Do you feel it's necessary? Do you feel robbed? Like, where are you?
I I feel it's a bunch of things. I feel, I don't want to say there's a sense of feeling robbed. You know, there's a sense of that. Um, you know, it's funny because, like I said, you know, 30 minutes ago now, on the my son just asked, you know, or told me that my mother was died, and he, you know, he wondering what happened. You start to think I was really robbed. My mom should be here, you know. So there is a sense of that, but that's not at this point. That's not an everyday thing by any means. I think it's because I've really been trying to work on forgiveness in my sense, and it's something that I've been working on for quite a while. And you know, and I think by being able to forgive, you give up that power of being controlled or being wronged. So I've been working on forgiving the guy who murdered my mother, just so that I can get rid of that hatred or that anger, you know, because look, life is short, life is fragile, and you know, I'm in my fourth decade of living, and this is the prime of my life, you know, and I don't want it to be, I don't want to waste any time being angry or upset if I could avoid it. As far more particular, as far as your question about closure, I think I kind of gave up on that, to be honest. And what I mean by that is, instead of trying to think of, uh, and we always talk about grief is something, I don't believe grief is something you can get over. I think grief is something you're going to have to learn to deal with and navigate through. And I think that is the approach we need to have. We can't just, my mom was too important of a person for me to just ignore that she existed or forget what happened. That's not happening. And if I'm fooling myself to think I can do that, I think it's just setting myself for disappointment and frustration. So my approach is to understand, to try to figure out solutions, and to learn to navigate with this grief. And that's the approach that and again, I credit DDJF. That's stuff I've learned from doing exactly what you're doing now and what I do on Wednesdays. You learn so much. And that's why I love our community and what we're doing. We're sharing it and just building a better sense of a community who can deal with grief, because our society doesn't do it. We don't learn how to deal with loss properly. You know, after a championship game, we're all on the winners. We're ignoring the losers. They lost. We're looking at winners, and that's what our society is. That's what we do. But there's a proper way and a healthy way to lose and how to get through it. And that's that's why when I was told you wanted me here, I was like, no problem, I'm here, because it's important and there needs to be more of it.
Thank you. I'm still trying to remember that we're here and think, "Hey,
Yeah.
it's actually really happening." I'm just gonna be honest. So I'm thankful for that, and I truly do. You're said about the forgiveness for the man who murdered your mother, and it's
Yeah.
taken you this many years since 1994. I'm really bad at math, TJ, so I'm just
All
gonna say
good.
this many years
All good.
until 1994. do you think you'll need the same amount of time to find forgiveness to the gentleman that had something to do with your uncle's passing, or or is that not in play? Like, I mean, it unfortunately both of
Yeah,
these losses have had some foul play, some things where there's actually a person or persons that
yeah,
you can direct the anger towards. Where some people, it's more of a terminal illness. Like for myself, I had some anger towards my father. Like you died from lung cancer, so you consciously made decisions in his
mm,
case to smoke and to not take
mm,
care of yourself, and then you left me here,
yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So I'm just curious about that.
And thanks for sharing that, J.Nicole, Grief Bully. I think and again, I thank you because it's important for people to hear that. For me, in my case, um, and there is frustration, anger, all of the above for the man who was responsible for my uncle's passing. There is all of that. I don't think it's as heavy on me for two reasons. Number one, because my mother, I lost her at a crucial time. I was just a kid myself, and I was kind of the whole rug was swept for me. This was the person who took me to my health, appointments, took me to school.
Mhm.
So I think the loss was different. Although both were incredibly painful, the loss was more a necessities kind of, and it had a bigger effect on how I ended up becoming. So I think that's one reason, and then the other one is simply because I had quote unquote practice. This wasn't my first major loss. My mother was my first major loss. So I got to learn, and I was older, and that will be the third reason. I'm older. So I had more tools at my disposal to understand and not let any type of anger mess me up more than it needed to.
Thank you. What I hear there is the happening might not be on us, but the healing is certainly our responsibility. And so it
100%.
it seems like you took that responsibility though, and that's another thing I want people to get that part is that it's not enough to just want to feel better or to want to find happiness. Like you have to actually be willing to do something. It may not be the exact way or the right way or whatever. You might not have a manual, but it is a decision to stay stuck, if that
Mm,
makes sense. I mean, at least I think so. I can cry tomorrow. I can cry tonight. I'm still upset. I'm still angry. You have things you still have to work through, but at the same time, we've also chosen to pivot and to have the DDJF Foundation and the Grief Bully podcast and everything that we're doing. And not saying that people have to go out and launch a podcast, but I think you make that decision. And so the way that you have framed and perceived your losses, I think is really going to help a lot of people today through your explanations. And so I certainly want to thank you for that. I want to
yes.
bounce into a part of our show. It's our Inspirational Boost, where we give a quote or words of encouragement each week, and that's brought to us by our sponsors, Adina J Designs. They make, create, and inspire us through decorated apparel, wood signs, custom tumblers, so many amazing things they have going on there. Definitely follow them on social media at Adina J Designs, ADENA JAY Tell them I sent you. You might get some percentages off. I don't know, but closed mouths don't get fed. So our quote this week is going to be actually a song, a quote lyrics, I'm sorry, from the song The Power of Love from 3T, which TJ Jackson is a part of. So it's, I know we have to make a change somehow, because tomorrow it's not too far away from now. Nothing's impossible with love by your side. Don't give up. The hope you lost can still be found, because miracles, they always seem to come around. I really
Mm.
just loved it, and it was something. I mean, obviously, I don't sound like you guys did, but I kind of started to feel a little rhythm go, and I'm like,
I
okay,
know you're
fully,
flowing.
let's see. But I really love that, and honestly, I could have really stopped at the part where it says, "Because tomorrow it's not too far away from now." What do those words mean to you, TJ?
I think it's exactly what it says, that you can't give up hope. You can't throw in the towel, and no matter how much you feel like you need to, or it's not worth continuing, that tomorrow can bring a better day. And one thing I want to say is, coming off of what you said about it being a choice. It may not be a conscious choice, it may be a subconscious choice, but we have to make that decision, that I'm gonna change this somehow. You have to do that in life. And again, this in particular is about us and our loss, but it could be about your loss of a home. It could be about a loss of a job. It could be about loss of anything. You can't give yourself a time to grieve. That's important, but at the same time, you got to be ready to move and grow from it. Whatever it is, we got to learn to continue on, because you can't wait for it to happen on you. You got to be the one who makes that decision to do it. So make that change, and don't give up. Don't give up, and keep it going, keep it moving, and believe in yourself. It's important.
For sure. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
And what I want to do now, just go into our love and memory segment. It's a part of our show that I started when we kind of got started with this. It was super important to me to humanize and to say the names of our loved ones, because I think a lot of times, often or not, they get forgotten and we don't say it, or maybe us ourselves don't have the courage to say it. And so this week, with having you on the show, TJ, our love and memory segment is going to go out to two of your angels. We've already talked about them a tremendous amount today, and I'm thankful for that opportunity. So we're going to say in love and memory to your dear mother, Dee Dee Jackson, who we know that you love so much, and I'm sure your brothers as well. She's truly missed, and may she continue to rest in peace. And also, we want to say in love and memory to the late Michael Jackson, who is your uncle to us. He was a world pop star, biggest star ever.
Yeah.
And for you, that's your uncle. And so we want to send our love and memory to both of them, and our condolences, our sympathies, our prayers, and our love are always going to be with your family as you continue to navigate the journey of healing from those losses. So that's our love and memory segment for this week.
Thank you. Thank you so much, J.Nicole.
Absolutely. And one last question, TJ, before you get out of here. I ask all of my guests, and it would be remiss if I did not ask you. It's short and sweet. If you had to choose a color for your grief, what would it be and why?
Ooh, that's a great question. If I had to choose a color for my grief, what would it be? It would probably be purple. I almost went black, but I felt that was a little too dark. So I think it would be purple. And the reasoning is because it is a darker color. There's some sorrow there, but it's also a color to me that signifies some brightness, some light. And I think, like I said, I think one thing I've done okay is I've learned how to think of the situation as a growing, as a stepping stone. And I don't want to sound insensitive, but you have to kind of find the positive in everything, and that's where that light of that little bit of color from the purple to me stands out. Is I may be hurting, but I'm not out, and I'm going to continue to grow. So that just, for some reason, that says purple to me. Red was another color I was thinking, but that's just a little too harsh for stop. And black was a little too dark, so I landed on purple.
I love that. I'm hurting, but I'm not out. I love that. That's beautiful, TJ. Thank you so much. You have been a phenomenal guest, an amazing guest. My life changed for so many reasons for having you on the show. But where can we find you? What do you have coming up? I know you've got a lot of phenomenal things going on.
Yes, so I think the best place to start is just my website, www.tjjackson.com. Music primarily. I'm going to start going into acting in 2021. But right now it's just been music. That's what I'm sharing. And of course, the Dee Dee Jackson Foundation, where we focus on loss and grief. And that's a Wednesday. We do a Wednesday radio show called The Power of Love. But if you go to tjjackson.com, you'll find all that good stuff, and it will lead you to my whole world. And yes, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff. And I'm searchable and findable there. But short answer, tjjackson.com.
Got you. Thank you so much, guys. I'll make sure I put that in the show notes, his website, his social media handles, so you can easily follow TJ. He is an amazing person, a beacon of light. I'm truly blessed, like I said, to have had you on the show today. Guys, it has been another phenomenal episode of the Griefbully podcast. I've enjoyed myself. Definitely want you to check out our YouTube channel. As I mentioned, subscribe. If you want to be a part of the Blue Heart Text Gang, text us today, 856-341-9950. And I didn't mean to say us. I meant to say me, because you're going to text me, and I'm going to be the person that's going to respond to you directly. It's not a robot. So again, 856-341-9950. Guys, I love hanging out the most on Instagram. I have Facebook, but don't even waste your time. Follow me on Instagram at I_am_J.Nicole. Guys, so next time, you already know. Love and light. Peace.